As the last lesson in the intermediate set of videos, we will be looking at how to use the assessment tool to gather data on your students for your use in the classroom or for other purposes as well. So after you have engaged the students in a Nearpod lesson, then you will need to come back to your home screen and click on the Assess tool in the top. We briefly mentioned this in the first set of beginner videos, but let's take a closer look at this tool now. Once you click on the Assess tool, you will see a list of all recent reports of lessons that you have conducted with your student. The one that we were looking at is this first one. When you click on it, you will notice the date on which the lesson was implemented to the students. If you have maybe done this lesson a few times, maybe on different dates with different classes, then you would choose the one that you would find appropriate for your data collection. So when we click on this date, we see a lot of information given to us based on the presentation that I chose. The first part of the report is a summary of the overall presentation and all of the data that we have collected. You can see here, this first pie chart shows the student participation, and if students do not answer the questions that we send to them, then they decrease our percentage of student participation. If we as the teacher move the presentation along before all students have the opportunity to answer, and that would then also decrease this percentage as well. Of course, the goal for student participation is 100%. And with my experience, the student participation level is greatly increased by using the Nearpod application because students are required to participate and answer questions throughout the lesson. And in this case, all students are doing so, rather than in a regular classroom where maybe only one student gets to respond to a question, and that's the student that we call on. So in this Nearpod application, we now have data for every student, and we know what every student is thinking on a daily basis. If you take a look, you can find the overall ratio of answers for the quiz. And you can see 1/3 of the students had the right answer, 1/3 had the wrong answer, and 1/3 didn't answer at all. So that kind of doesn't give us a really great indication because we only had 3 students taking the quiz and 1 didn't answer at all. But you can see the breakdown of your results pretty easily. If you look down here at the student engagement details, you will find the names of the students. The students, if you would like them to insert their student ID instead of their name, you can have them do that. And then it shows what they've answered out of the questions that we included in our presentation. So we had a poll question, we had open-ended questions, we had quiz questions, and we had the Draw It feature. And you can see that student number 2 did not answer any of those questions. So in that case, that would be a bit of a concern as a teacher that the student is not participating. And in that case, you would figure this out as you were going along, hopefully. But if you have a lot of students in your classroom, it may be easy to miss that a student is not participating in the lesson. So once we go back and look at this, then we have some concern for that student number 2 that we can address those situations with that student. If we go up to the quiz feature, we can look at each individual question that we ask the students and the data for each response. So we had one question that was a true or false question that was A rhombus always has 4 right angles, and that is false. And we can see that student A is the one that responded correctly. Now, based on your data, if you have the majority of students that answered correctly, then you might think generally, overall, the class understood the outcome or the results, the objectives of the lesson that we were hoping for. If not, then we might recognize we need to go back the next day and review what a rhombus is and whether or not it has 4 right angles, and whether it is always true, sometimes true, or never true. We can also look at the poll question that we asked, what is one characteristic of a trapezoid? And you can see that both students A and B got that correct, so that's 2/3 of our class. And the student number 2 did not answer, and then no one chose the other 3 incorrect responses. So in general, that is a positive outcome for that question. Finally, we can look at the open-ended and the draw it responses. We have already seen these during the lesson, but this is what our results will look like in the assess feature. You can read everyone's responses, and you can also see how many of them answered and how many of them did not answer at all. So unfortunately with the open-ended, it's not self-graded, but because it would be too difficult to assess via the computer, but we can assess them as we go back here and read all of them. And then finally, we can do the same with the draw-its. We can look at the drawings that the students made for us and open them. And if we can, need to investigate farther, we can definitely see which students need some help and which students need help following the directions. In this case, you see student B took their own approach, didn't quite follow the directions, but in this case, they were still able to accurately answer the question, and we can quickly and easily go through and check the students' drawings and see if they are accurate or not. As one final assessment feature, we can, as I mentioned earlier, we can share these results in an email to anyone who we would like to share them with, maybe another colleague, an administrator, parents, whoever we need to share them with. And we can also download these into a PDF, and we can print them out and give them to students individually. If you would like to do a student view, you could do it that way, and then provide their students with their results. When you open your PDF, you can see what the results were, how well they participated, and who participated in what questions and answered correctly.